Hi, and welcome to the Key Concepts podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to Mikey. He is a content creator and a um,
Jack of all trades.
film enthusiast, jack of all trades. This topic is actually really interesting to me because when it comes to content creation, we have this whole podcast set. We have lights, we have chairs, we have podcast arms, and the whole setup. So I'm curious to know what Mikey's take is on content creation, especially his perspectives on film. I think it's be interesting. I know I'm really interested in it because I'm sure there's going to be a few takeaways that I could take and adopt to the way I'm doing the podcast. So Mikey, you've been doing doing film and been doing content creation for the last 20 some odd years that I've known you. And you had various jobs in between. You mentioned earlier, jack of all trades, because whether it's photos or videos, whatever the case may be, you're pretty much go-to for all of that stuff. So why don't you introduce yourself? If you have any social media handles that you want to shout out, websites, things of that nature, I'll drop it in the description below, and I'll have it on the lower thirds.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, definitely. Let's see, man. Started out in IT, but for sure, I would say from the earliest memories, I became like a movie nerd. And so I fell in love with movies pretty early on. And that had a big impact in my life. And then later on, I found out that the influence that movies had in my life was also part of my personal identity. So when I was discovering myself, which actually only happened a few years ago, um, yeah, I realized like how much of an influence this had on my life. The good, the bad, the ugly, everything all around. And so, yeah, I've been doing some content creation for the past, I don't know, man, like you said, quite a few years now. Mostly in the background, doing gigs for friends, things like that. I also had, family and friends that I would do like skits with. I remember when I got my first camera, and this is what me and my cousins did. I would like just come up with like random funny skits. Um, one comes to my mind is like a burglary kind of thing where I was like a burglar and I was breaking into the house, and we just like shoot videos like this. But I think the fascination and the obsession came with the idea of storytelling. I think this was like probably the biggest thing that really, really got to me. I found out later that it was storytelling. I didn't know at first, but then later around, I found out that I wanted to tell my story so bad that I would like look at these movies and all these stories about everything, right? As you can imagine, movies are about everything. And I was just like, okay, man, this is really, really cool. Like, I want to be able to tell a story like the way they tell the story, the way they capture the audience and their fascination, and the way that people get synced in with, with stories. But yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure. And as far as like what I'm doing right now, primarily is I am trying to run a channel, a YouTube channel, Mission to God. So you can check me out on Mission to God, and it is a faith-based channel where it's a little bit more grounded in, again, faith and how that's impacted my life, and things that I find to be true and valuable to me. So yeah, that's what's going on so far. Yeah.
So you mentioned a few things there. You have your own YouTube channel. You do some freelance gigs, friends, family, whatever comes up. Do you need any schooling for that, or what kind of training do you need to get into content creation and do the type of things that you're doing today? Or is it just self-learn, and is that good enough?
Yeah, I do think that it can be enough. So that's the caveat is that like I think it can be. I think it's wherever your passion is driving you towards. So if you're trying to, let's say like you're trying to make a channel. By the way, I should just mention that you know it's a lot different than like today than it was maybe when we were young. Because I remember just having a camera, but I didn't even know what most of the buttons did on the camera, right? So Today, it's I think a little more advanced as far as like the amount of information that's available to people. So if some kid wants to like create a channel and learn the stuff, they don't have to go to school. They can just open up YouTube, Google, and search the stuff, and they can find out pretty easily. I think it was a little bit more different for us, but no, I absolutely do not believe that you need to go to school for it. I think that school is, and I think you'll probably agree with me on this, like it's more about networking than learning the and maybe the technical attributes of like how to be a filmmaker or things like that. I think it's just really for the networking aspect. This is just again today. I'm sure like back then, it had a lot of value to offer. You would use equipment that wasn't available to you, whereas like we can today afford a lot more gear to be able to do the things that we want to do versus before. So I think it's a lot different than today than it was before. But I think the number one most important thing is about the passion. So if you have the passion, I think it's just going to eat your brain. It's just your school isn't going to matter that much. Like if you realize if you realize that that is your passion and that's what's like eating your brain, you're not going to be satisfied with just, oh, I can't afford to go to film school. That's not going to be that's not going to be enough. Like, you're not just going to quit. You're going to figure something out. You're going to start doing like some stuff with friends, some DIY stuff, like skits and stuff. You're just going to do it, and eventually people are going to recognize some of your work, and that's going to get captured, and you can get picked up. You can, and the sky's the limit from there. But no, I absolutely do think that especially in today's age, you can do anything, just about almost anything that you want to do. Filmmaking has become so much more affordable. And we've been part of this journey together for quite a few years. And I'm sure you will also attest to this, that the equipment, like even some of the stuff that we use in the
Exactly.
studio
Yeah.
now, is it's crazy how much affordable it's become. It's like back then you would have something that maybe a Steven Spielberg might be able to afford. But now the average Joe can just buy this stuff and, and become a filmmaker. So this kind of draws back to the most important thing, which is the story.
Yeah.
So if you have that within you, if you are a natural storyteller, I think that's going to be the most important thing. And it's just like, it'll get people's attention. That'll grab people's attention.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, if you're a natural storyteller, perfect for the film industry. But you mentioned passion a few times, and it's a recurring thing. And it sounds like storytelling is an aspect of passion. What about the people that are not so passionate? Is there a avenue for them to get in? Is it still worth it for them to kind of pursue a career in content creation? Could it be used as a skill set to complement other industries? And even if you don't like really care about storytelling, is there still a benefit? And what could that benefit be if you're learning how to use the camera, learning how to do some editing, things like that? What's your
Yeah,
take on that?
absolutely. I think so. I think it's an helpful tool. So even if you are not a filmmaker, like a storyteller, you can still use the marketing advantage to it. Like if you have a business, restaurant or whatever, you can use filmmaking in a way that can advance your business. So absolutely, there are ways that you can use this to your advantage. You don't have to be like a Steven Spielberg. You don't have to be one of those type of people. But for sure, like it's a tool, right? Like at the end of the day, why not? You don't have to be
Mhm.
master at it. You can absolutely use it for your advantage.
So let's say there's an entrepreneur out there that has a business. They want to maybe do something for them. What kind of equipment are they going to need? Let's say they want to run a commercial. Is it even worth it? Should they hire someone? Should they try it on their own? Test it? Like, how would you go about that business that maybe wants to manage budget a little bit, can't afford all of the big cameras, the lights? Is an iPhone good enough? And
Yes. In fact, let's say if you can afford all the fancy stuff, hold yourself back. Hold yourself back, test yourself whether you actually want to do this whether you actually have a desire and kind of like to roll back to the word passion for it, but use your iPhone, use what's around, and test yourself not on the basis of the gear that I have, but the desire that I have. So if you just point an iPhone at you, you can do a lot of the same things. In fact, a lot of the things that we were doing back when we were teenagers, you can absolutely do this with an iPhone. In fact, the iPhone may even have a lot more better quality than what we were using back then. So yeah, I would actually say hold back. If there's one advice that I would give to myself, if I can go back, is don't spend any of the money that I did. I spent a lot. I probably think about this. I just one day was like, okay, man, like there was an incident where, not an incident, there was an event where I was called to do some photography work, and I did some photography work after years of not doing it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, why did I stop? Why did I stop doing this? And it was just like this trigger and kind of like this reawakening. And so, I'm trying to remember where I was going with this.
The type of equipment, the
Yeah,
iPhone
right.
and whatever else.
So I probably spent like, somewhere around like $25,000.
Wow.
And that was a very quick jump, and like I should not have done that. I would definitely, anyone watching, I would say hold off on that, especially when it comes to gear. Like one thing about gear is like you need to be. It's kind of like an investment into, I don't know, like watches or whatever. Like you need to know which one will hold value and what doesn't. Like cameras don't hold value. Lenses hold value. Lenses don't typically change that often. In fact, the sort of like current trend right now is that people are reverting back to old vintage lenses because it has like this aesthetic, filmic, classical aesthetic to it. So lenses, like you'll find a lens from the 80s or the 90s, and it'll go for $30,000.
Wow.
Like it's insane. It's like a watch or something, like some jewelry. Cameras update all the time, so they don't hold their value. They just keep getting better. There's no reason to hold on to something, that was shooting 1080. You just, you want the 4K, you want all the new features. So there's that aspect to it. Doing some research and understanding like what should I buy and what shouldn't I buy? What's going to hold value and what should I rent? So there's that aspect to it. Now this is like you're going deep into like the action. This I would say if you have the passion for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're spending some, deep money. But yeah, like I would say hold off on buying the gear and focus on, if you have an idea in your head, play it out with your iPhone. Play it out with what you have right now. And then that'll kind of it'll sort of give you an idea of like, okay, like I'm really fascinated what I just made. Like this was really cool. I mean, it's made with an iPhone, but I laughed or I liked it. Like whatever it is, like it had an impact on me. Like imagine if I did this with a little bit more of better equipment.
Sure, yeah.
So that starts kind of like playing with your imagination and you kind of get inspired and it just kind of like rolls from there. Like the snowball just rolls down from there. So yeah, like you do not need the equipment. For sure, you do not need all the fancy equipment. You just need more of the key concepts. You need the key ideas that will sort of like blossom and become the fruitful tree. And it'll just go from there. Inspiration will kick in from there. And that's how inspiration works, right? Like when you are inspired by an idea, it gives birth to another idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like goes from there. So, and then you get better and better at it and all that stuff. So, yeah, I don't think you need the equipment. I would hold off on that. That would be a strong recommendation is like, man, don't imagine you just like wake up one day and like, okay, like I want to do this and just drop $20,000.
Right.
And
what happens afterwards if you don't want to do it no more? Well, there's 20,000. You're not going to reselling it. Is going to be a hassle, and hopefully you can recover as much of that as possible. But I think you mentioned a key point there is that if you want to even test it out as a business entrepreneur or for your passion for storytelling, whatever the case may be, you have everything you need in your pocket.
Yes.
Your camera, it's on your phone. It has good enough quality. Honestly, most of them, especially the newer iPhones and
Mhm.
the Google, Samsungs, whatever, they shoot in
Incredible.
4K,
Incredible.
and some of them shoot in 8K. So the quality is already there,
Yeah.
and it would be a good way for people to test the waters, and then if they can get to a place where they, what I'm hearing anyways, you say is outgrow your phone,
Yes.
outgrow it
Yeah.
to then look at all that
Mhm.
equipment, do some research, and then find the ones that are going to really work out for you. Get some
Mhm.
advice, mentor, whatever, to kind of help guide you through the gear purchasing process so you get the right stuff for your use case. So there's
And if you
go
don't
ahead.
mind, one thing that I just remembered real quick, I think that, like, for example, I was with some family yesterday, and one of my cousins told me, "Hey, could you show my son?" I think he's like 11. He's like, "Could you show my son some of the things that you do on a computer?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, show him how to open up a website and
Mm,
use the computer, general stuff. I was like, Sure, okay." And then as we talked, he's like, it would be cool if you could let him check out how you make videos. I was like, okay, you want him to get into video? And I asked him, I said, Hamlet, are you interested in like making videos and content creation, things like that? He's like, yeah, yeah. And I was like, do you want to come over? Do you want to come over and watch and learn this stuff? So in that, because I know you asked, do you go to college? Do you
exactly.
learn on?
Yeah.
I think I think, look, man, if you have the means, right? I mean, it's kind of like if you have the means to buy Ferrari, you're gonna buy Ferrari. It's not gonna matter to you. You're gonna do the best. So if you got the money, you got the means, you go to film school, you got everything you need there. They got sets
Right.
so you can do like mock plays and stuff. Like, sure, if you got the means, but it's not necessary. That's just kind of like overdoing it, I think. So situations like this where they can come over and physically watch, and because some people learn this way, right? Like
Hmm.
they learn by actually being there, touching, and that kind of stuff. So I guess it kind of depends on the person. Or because I told him, look, man, you can open up YouTube and type in anything about filmmaking, and you'll get hundreds upon hundreds of videos on it. So it just really depends on what type of a learner is he. That's gonna give him the best results. If he wants to come here and actually watch, and I think to me, that's a little bit more old school,
Yeah.
like, man, I want to be there and actually like see it and watch it and touch it. That's kind of like old school way. And I like that. And I think that's for me, that's the way I learn, and that's the way I like to learn. Um, but yeah, you can, I mean, it's just up to you. It's what
Sure.
type of a learner you are. And but for sure, like again, back to the phone, just take it out. It's in your phone, it's in your pocket, and get a couple friends, family members, whatever, and just play something out. One of the things that I actually would recommend, to kind of close with this, is that if you have no one, which has happened with us as well, even till this day, a lot of people are camera shy, but if you don't have someone that you can kind of like role play, um, like if your mom or dad or someone in the house is cooking, create a montage of them cooking.
Yeah.
That's going to teach you quite a bit about how videos are clipped together and when to cut something to another frame. So that'll teach you some key concepts about like how to do that stuff. So that's, if you don't have the advantage of having some people who want to be in skits and role plays with you. So there's ways.
Yeah. I mean, I've even seen, and these are really funny videos where there's the same person putting on a wig and acting as different
Yeah, yeah.
people,
There you
and they
go.
do a take, and they go role play the
Absolutely.
other one, they role play the other one.
Yeah.
and,
That's
and it's the same person, but it adds so
yes.
much comedic value to it
Yeah.
that it's hilarious. So yeah, and they're always good, whether they're good quality,
I
bad
love
quality.
those.
They're
I love
the
those.
best.
Yeah, one of the I would say like it's because it's like it's so creative. Um,
Exactly. You
and
appreciate that almost more than the skit
yes,
itself.
yes. Like it's sometimes like somehow it just works better than if it was a different person. Like it's funnier. It hits home. So, and the other thing, like anytime that I've watched videos like that, where you know it's just one guy doing everything, it really, really hits me in the head like, man, dude, no excuses. Really, there's no excuses. You can do this. Why couldn't you pretend to be the other
Exactly.
character and just do it? Just do it. So this is why another reason that I would just hold off on buying the gear.
Okay.
Really, really test yourself whether this is like, look, do you want to be at the position where you look back and say, "Oh my gosh, I spent 25,000. I can't undo this." Do you
Exactly.
want to be in that position? No.
No, no.
So,
So let's say someone does kind of progress through the beginner phases. They're using their phone. Well, actually, there's going to be two questions. What I want to ask now is, what kind of editing software do you need? Let's say you get your phone, you have it, you have the footage on your phone. Obviously, you can put it on your computer, but then how do you then take that and you said clip it, learn, you're going to learn about clip it. Well, what's the common software and what are some of the benefits from one versus the other?
mhm,
And then the next thing I was going to ask about is when you progress through that phase, what are the different things that you got to think about? You mentioned the set earlier, you mentioned the camera. I don't think we talked about lights. So if you could talk about that a little bit on the
mhm.
components of what you need to consider as you kind of progress through film creation, content creation, whether you're an enthusiast or a jack of all trades. But first, talk to me about the software, and then let's dive into the different things that
Mhm.
make up a picture.
Yeah. And all of this, just keep in mind, all of this is driven by the story. So as I mentioned, the softwares and the programs, it's all basically birthed from the story. And so I'll explain why. So when I started doing videos, I think it was like Movie Maker on Windows. Like this is, my gosh, like 15, maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's a Mac product, Movie Maker. I don't know actually.
And iMovie is
Right. That's right.
Apple's version. So, and I remember when, I got my MacBook, it was the MacBook Pro, and it had iMovie on there. And iMovie is basically like, again, just like a basic video editor, basic enough for like for your kids to use, right? So, at the time, I didn't have no lights. The only thing that I had was the camera, and it was actually a handy cam. So it wasn't like the type of camera where you can remove the lens off and put different lenses. It was a set lens. So you have only so much room to kind of play around with and the type of shots that you can get. But that didn't matter. Like, see, this is the thing. Like, the gear, the technical stuff wasn't in my head. So it, I would say, like, my mind was able to freely more concentrate on the story and what I wanted to like portray in the story,
Mhm.
rather than like, what are the technicals? So should I put lights here? Like, none of that stuff like
Mattered.
mattered to
Yeah.
me, and I didn't even understand it. Like, for sure, there is a certain aesthetics to film when you're watching like a movie, and you're like, man, how do I get my video to look like that movie? What is it about that movie? So of course, like, I learned more and more about filmmaking, and then I realized it's lighting, it's props, it's creating the 3D world, because we are 3D creatures. So we're looking at, excuse me, we're in a 3D world. So we're looking at things in a 3D way. So it's like, okay, why does my video look so flat? And why is the movie that I'm watching on television so dynamic? And so that came in later. But initially, I was just using the most free basic editor, which only allowed you to essentially just cut. That's
Yeah.
essentially all it allowed you to do. Like, I don't even remember filters being around then. So, um, so yeah, like, just the most very basic editor. And then as I wanted to do more things, like if I wanted to create a lightning effect, that desire, that need for the story pushed me to figure out, what do I need to use to get a lightning strike in the video? So that led me to use a little bit more advanced softwares. I can name some of the softwares, but that's essentially the whole, like, the basic of it is that, like, when the story needs something and it's pushing you to the point where you have to look into, like, how do I do this? How do I create this? you do the research and then you find, okay, I learned that this program can do this. Now I need to learn how to use this program to be able to do that. So concentrate on the story and what the story needs, and that'll drive you to what kind of tools you're going to need, versus just randomly just buying and getting tools that you're just not going to need. I've gone through that too, like for sure. There was a point where my computer had probably like over $100,000 worth of programs, like everything from 3D programs, because I wanted to learn 3D. How can I bring in special effects into my scenes? And so as I learned the more advanced softwares and programs, it allowed for my imagination, it allowed for my creativity to grow, because now I can do more things.
Yeah.
So like my arsenal kind of grew. So I would just kind of keep it basic like that. Like, the story should drive what you need to learn, what kind of tools you need to use. And it'll go from there.
Yeah. So it sounds like keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah. Concentrate on the story.
Don't overcomplicate film or content creation.
Right.
Just go and do it with what you have in your pocket, and the rest of it will fall into place. You'll learn from it. You'll identify things. You'll kind of start seeing what
on a need basis. Yes.
And that'll kind of progress into whether it's the video editing software or the equipment. The use case will drive that essentially. And the story, again, like it matters more than any of the equipment, to your point. Like I do think the story holds on its own, and the quality of that could always be improved. But if the story is good, the average viewer is going to look at the story and like, wow, that was a good story. They're probably not going to look at it and be like, oh, there's a little blemish here and this could have been lighted better. Like there's going to be like maybe a 1 to 5% of people, but that's not the audience.
Right. Exactly. And I will just add this too. I remember times where I would just maybe be bored and I wanted to learn something new, again, maybe tied to a software program. And let's say like you want to mask on a tattoo on your arm or something like that. And there was no story. It was just like, oh, I wanted to, maybe I'm bored and I just want to like learn something. That desire to learn that thing didn't last for that long. So imagine like you're on a computer and you're trying to learn this program. Maybe you're watching a video. Maybe you're reading some book on a software or something, some PDF file. And then imagine like after maybe, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours later or something, you're just like, just whatever. So this is why I say focus on the story, because when you focus on the story and you get the tools to support that story, your level of completion to learn the thing that you needed to learn goes all the way. Versus like, because like I got to do it. It's not like I can just choose to get up or not get up and not go to work. Like I need to go to work. It's a necessity. So in your head, you're like, no, I need to learn. This is part of the story. I got a day or two left to post this video. I got to finish this. So I need to do this. So there's a certain different kind of drive and motivator to completion and actually learning something that is necessary and not just like arbitrarily like, oh, maybe I want to learn how to do this. And so I've seen even with myself, like, oh, like I mentioned, like a jack of all trades. Oh, I want to do this. And then there'll be a time where like, oh, I didn't last too long in this thing. It's just, it died. The desire died because there was no driver. There's like no purpose for it. But when you have a story and there's a purpose for it, like you need it, you're just like driven to figure it out. I know we've talked about this before. Everything concerning audio. There's so many. It's like, no, I need to learn how to do this. It's not like whether it's like for fun, I just want to know. No, I need to know how to do this because I'm doing this work. So it drives you. So, yeah.
So let's talk about the advanced user for a second. What are the areas that they need to learn about?
So let's just kind of put this like out of the way, because like it's a given. Story.
It's like,
right? Like
it never changes from the novice to the expert.
This will never ever change. It doesn't matter in what industry, advertisements for businesses. Oh, it's not a movie, but it's telling a story. So if you're trying to sell something, you have to figure out how do human beings connect with stories when you're trying to sell them something. How do you touch their heart? How do you touch their minds? So this is this is the thing that you need to like dominate in. That you need to figure out, how do human beings perceive stories? How do they connect all this stuff? Okay, that's a given. Like real estate, location, location. Okay, in filmmaking, story. Figure that out. Now, that out of the way, the most obvious and most obvious thing in filmmaking, put that aside. Lighting. Not the camera, not the lenses, not even the actors.
Audio?
Lighting. For sure. So audio is this is actually tested and proven that if you show a video with bad audio but excellent video, people don't care as much. They're quicker to just like dismiss the video. But if you have a terrible video movie with excellent audio, people will still watch it. So this is like a proven and tested thing. So yes, this is like audio for sure. Like it is so important. So I would
how would you prioritize it? Let's say you can put audio first, or you put lights first.
I would put audio first.
Okay, what do you put second?
Lights.
Okay.
Yeah. So because if you think about what movies are, it's optics, right? It's a vision. Now, when we as human beings look at vision, everything that we see is 3D. Light is what separates. Like everything that you see here is separated by light. So the vision that you're trying to tell, there are things in that vision that you're highlighting and that you're darkening that has importance and that doesn't have importance. Light does all of this. So if there's one thing that I would do is I would go back and like, dude, like learn lighting, learn how to create shadows, which creates depth. Like blocking. Blocking is how you tell your actor how to walk, where to walk, to do the things that they're going to do. And are you going to put a chair there, a lamp, or so you're creating this 3D world, and that we draw into that. We are more fascinated with that. That is intriguing to us as human beings because we live in this world, in a 3D world. So everything that we see is 3D. And so if you can portray 3D in a 2D flat, you got something there that you're starting to figure out what filmmaking is about. But yeah, I would say audio for sure. Like, think about this. Could you watch a video with no audio? It's very hard. Maybe a minute. Like, what? Okay, I'm watching something. What is it? Like, you know?
Yeah.
But think of a podcast. Think of the radio. No video, but you can hear, and you're stuck to it. You can listen to it for hours.
Even audiobooks.
So audio is for sure the dominance.
Okay,
for sure the king.
We already know storytelling is zero. That's like the ultimate one that's applicable.
The top, yes.
Yeah.
On a
so
pyramid.
Then that aside, sound, lights. What do you put at third?
What I would put third? Okay, now we're getting into maybe lenses, because the lens will. So, for example,
so that's quality. Then, if you're saying lens, you're saying quality of the video.
Well,
the lens is going to be tight.
It can be, but what I'm saying is not so much about the quality, but about the aspect ratio. So we know that the different type of effects that our minds perceive things. Like if you have like a close-up shot, what does that mean? If you have something,
okay, I see.
Right. So it tells a story. It's framing the story. It's framing.
So would you categorize it as equipment being third?
Sure.
Because if you're talking about lens, that's definitely an aspect of equipment. So camera equipment being
I mean, like I would
third.
probably say they're all encompassed in equipment. But as far as like what is the most important, like if you were to have a list,
right?
Yeah, you would put audio first. Have good audio. Imagine if you were told to record a conference, right? Maybe it's some kind of event or whatever,
Sure, yeah.
and you had and something happened to the video. It's just like awful, but the audio is still good. It's like perfect. It wasn't affected. Man, you're still saved. You're that's okay. But if you have no audio in your video, like, what are you gonna do with that? So for sure, you can because in the world of manipulation, which is like much of filmmaking, you can if you have the audio, you can manipulate some kind of video, right, to kind of like go along with it. You can't
Pictures,
do that with
stills, yeah.
audio. It's very difficult. Like I don't know in what rare situation that again, like Hollywood, you got the money, you got the means, maybe you can do something
Sure.
in the studio, but yeah, folk if right now you haven't bought anything and then all you have is your iPhone and you're at that point where you've tested it out, you're like, yeah, I want to do this. Like, I want to go fully into this. Take your budget and buy the best audio, best microphone that you can within the margin of your allowance.
Budget, yeah.
So, number one, for sure, audio. And test it out, man. Please rent. We didn't have this growing up. One of the things about filmmaking, especially back when we were kids, let's just put a number. Let's just put a date on this. We're talking about like 2005,
Yeah.
4,
Early
right?
2000s, yeah.
So this is still at a time where film is predominantly shot on film, not digital, like memory cards, on actual film. The 5D Mark 1 and 2, which revolutionized the DSLR industry. It was the first one to offer video and photo in one camera at the same time. So we didn't have this when we were growing up. So when it comes to rentals, these rental houses were insanely expensive. For you to rent, it would cost so much. You would need so much film, which is so expensive. For you to shoot, imagine shooting a 2-hour, that would be so many rolls of film. And so everything was so expensive. The average Joe could not go like, I want to, shoot this video. I want to just, I'm thinking about becoming a filmmaker. Oh my God, that would have been such a crazy thing to say because like, yeah, do you have $500,000? Just like, can you afford? Now it's not the same anymore. You don't have to be a millionaire or whatever to be able to like go and rent or buy and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So rent, do some research, put a list down, and rent these. So like I got mic 1, mic 2, mic 3. I want to test these out. And they're going to be like, maybe $50 for a couple of days or whatever, but it's worth it because we're talking about thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Rent it and then choose which one is going to sound the best. It's going to work for you and your surrounding. And then like, okay, got your microphone down. Next, lighting. Now, let me just kind of, again, emphasize lighting. So think of like an iPhone or think of a camera. It's not the best quality, right? Lighting will change that. So if you've seen like an iPhone footage that's kind of like grainy, that grain will disappear if you had enough light. So lighting is so crucial. You can actually take a camera from, I don't know, God knows when, 1990s or whatever, and you can, with proper lighting, you can make it look like it's some kind of a brand new digital camera. That's just the power of lighting. So when it comes to these like camera sensors, their biggest obstacle is light. How much sensitivity do they have towards light? Like this is where you get ISO from. And if your sensor does not capture enough light, this is where you digitally increase the ISO and create artificial light. So, and then you see the grains, and then you see the artificialness of it. So, these are the things that you start to understand about, like, okay, how do I create an image? So, audio for sure given, story for sure given, but then okay, now let's start to actually create the visuals, and the visuals again, it's just lighting. It's the king. It's
Gotcha. So we got sound first, we got lighting second,
Mhm.
then we got camera equipment, which is
Right.
lenses third,
Trickles down, yeah.
and then I guess fourth and last one is your set.
I would say, so I'll probably put camera here. I'll probably put camera in this order because
Oh, so you're gonna separate lenses away from
yes,
camera bodies.
because if you think about cameras, they have different frame rates that they can shoot. So, for example, if you think about a Jackie Chan movie or something like that, say Jason Bourne identity movie, where if you've seen those fighting sequences and they're fast. So if you need something that can shoot at high frames per second, right? So you might need slow motion. So you might need a global shutter instead of a rolling shutter. So and this is like where you get to the more expensive cameras. Cameras like Red, I believe even maybe Ari, which is probably the most expensive camera company, but they have what's called a global shutter, which means if you shake the camera really really fast, and then you look at the frames, all the frames and all the lines are straight. Whereas if you lose like the DSLR cheaper cameras, it looks like it's bending, right? The frame is kind of like bending. So depending on what your story is about, what kind of a story that you're telling, you might need a certain type of camera that offers this capability. We talk about RAW oftentimes, which gives us the ability to do a lot of color correction. When it comes to movies, color palette, this is huge. Colors tell us everything. There's a reason why when you look at comedies, they're like bright and more, you know, yellow and just uplifting colors. And then you see something like some more horror movie, you see dark blues. So these are tones, right? This is also part of the storytelling. Like all these attributes play together for you to like put the story together. So I would probably put in fourth place the camera,
Camera
lenses,
body, yeah.
then camera. Depending on again, if you're action, fast paced, car chasing, you want a global shutter. You don't want the car bending and stuff like that. So I probably put camera in fourth place.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the lenses that give you a lot of
Mhm.
flexibility, and then the camera body itself, which is going to give you your color palettes as well
Mhm.
as uh, it's going to unlock a bunch more
Some technical
features.
capability.
Yeah, and then
Mhm.
and that's going to be for the more advanced user, and that's why it's so low on the list. Is
Mhm.
because you're really at that once you're advancing through this, then you're this is really number four, and then I guess the set is number five. Honestly, you can make
Yeah,
something out of anything, and
yeah.
then
And I would just say, as far as set goes, um, most of all of us live in a house, right? So we have we have a set, right? You have a kitchen, so just kind of like create a story story takes place in the kitchen.
right.
So that's the only reason why. It's kind of like you don't have to work so much hard at it because you can use existing places that you already know and have. But obviously, if you are doing something a little bit more technical or creative, sure, you can use like a green screen like we do and stuff like that, and stuff like that comes into play.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, you could definitely with lighting or put up a curtain or something, partition the house in a way.
Right.
You could definitely work with it wherever you live right now. You can make a story around your room if that's all you have. You're renting one room in a house.
Hmm.
You can make a whole story in a room, and it can be
Absolutely.
multiple personalities. Throw on the mop as you're here.
Right. Right.
You can make the story happen. So yeah. So to just recap the order, we got obviously storytelling being the ultimate above all else, and then we have sound first, lighting second, lenses third, the camera body fourth, and then the set
Hmm.
fifth. And that order is kind of what we're concluding on. Um, that's good to know. That's the order. That's for the people that want to kind of progress and what they could start tackling one after another to kind of understand how they're going to perfect the craft. But let's say someone is average, right? They've kind of
Hmm.
figured, dabbled, done a little bit of this and that. What kind of careers can they then expect? Let's say they've done it as an enthusiast and now they're ready to kind of go out there. How are they going to, one, market
Hmm.
themselves? And then what kind of jobs could they get?
Yeah, so absolutely. Like for example, as we mentioned earlier, if you are someone that's passionate about like, you want to be a filmmaker. Filmmaker in a sense, not like in commercials or whatever, but like you want to make movies. So if you master that, if you learn how to do that, well, you can apply that to marketing. So if you wanted to get into marketing, if you wanted a job in marketing, you can do that. You can start a marketing firm. Like you know how to tell stories. And that's what advertisers want. That's what they hire cinematographers, directors. This is what, like, okay, I like this guy. I like how he tells the story in that commercial. I like the way that he used, for example, like Subaru. If you look at like, it's interesting to look at different car companies and look at the way that they advertise. And then within the advertisement, what's the all this is probably not the best word, but what's the propaganda that they're pushing, right? So if you look at Subaru, one of the things that Subaru does is like they'll constantly highlight their safety features.
Mm.
Oh, they have this amount of airbags. And in fact, the last few campaigns that they had was how a family member, they were going on a trip and they're gonna, and then the feature where it's like the car just hits the brakes by itself, it's
The
autonomous,
auto
whatever,
braking, yeah.
right? And that saved their life. Or I even remember one where they got in a car crash, and then kind of like the big big part of the advertisement was how safe it is. Like,
Mm.
and you saw the car, it was like really beat up, but then they were all alive. The family, everybody was okay. So they're telling the story. They're taking a product and they're mixing it with the everyday what matters to us as human beings, like our families, right? So they're taking a family thing and they're taking like a product and they're mixing it. That's storytelling. That's filmmaking. So if you actually look at movies, you'll find products. If you like condense it all and just kind of like zoom out and look, it's actually like a product. They're selling a product, So uh, there are tons of fields that you can use your skills as a filmmaker to go into those fields and use that to your advantage. But again, marketing would be like, especially because we live in a digital age, social media, like, we have some friends that are in the food restaurant business. We have some friends that are in the car shop businesses and so on. And so every one of these areas that you can use this skill to go into that market and use it to your advantage. Have jobs.
So I think you mentioned commercials already. You were using
Hmm.
Subaru as an example, but someone could perfect the craft of making commercials. We already mentioned film,
Hmm.
making short stories or long form stories, and then sounds like even just general marketing, right? Once you have the
Hmm.
video content. So let's
Like,
say,
you have a toothpaste, right? In your you have a toothpaste in your house. Take your phone out and then write a little short story about how that can somehow be mixed with in a story that's like maybe it helped you in a way. Like you could have had a disease and like by using this toothpaste, it no longer gives you like this pain or whatever, like whatever. It's just, I'm just making something up right now, but just use stuff that's around you. Like, how can this is how you should learn. This is an awesome way to learn is take stuff that's around your house because they are products. These are all company products. Like in what way can I tell a story, a little short advertisement with this product? Let your creativity push yourself and whatever creativity comes to you, just use it. Start shooting that
right?
just for fun. And then you will know, because this is what product advertisers, directors, this is what they do. They take a product and then they have to tie it to like a human story. In fact, I won't name the company, but there is a company right now that is in big trouble because the advertisement just failed. It just people can't connect with it. And when you're spending millions of dollars to create an advertisement and people aren't going to connect to it, it's a dead story. It's just not going to work. So look at the stuff that's around the house. Start playing around with that. You will see how like you're actually developing your muscles, your storytelling muscles. It's gonna get better and better and better. And then you can shoot commercials. People will I'm telling you, I have um listened to many podcasts and I have read even books, PDFs, YouTube, everything about directors, cinematographers telling the story about how they just created a video on YouTube and it was picked up. They
Oh wow,
like
yeah.
the way that this person is able to creatively tell a story. And so, man, all advantage to you. Like today, so many resources.
So you're kind of already alluding to my next question, which is going to be content distribution. It sounds like you could take any product in the household, make commercials, do short
Hmm.
stories, and then kind of create that little portfolio for yourself.
Hmm.
Post it. Someone wants to see your portfolio, giving them your YouTube channel or wherever you're going to post it. So tell me about the content distribution process. What are the platforms to post on? Which are the probably the most effective ones, or when which one, um, and which ones might be more of a waste of your time? I mean, there's
Mm,
probably some unknown ones, but if you had to start somewhere, what platform would you pick and why?
sure. And by the way, this list changes the order. So maybe you'll see YouTube being popular now, and then Rumble might take over later. So this list might change, but essentially, what you would want to do is do a little research to find out where the most target what you're interested in, because certain platforms will have a specific thing that they're into. Like for example, Vimeo. Vimeo and YouTube are both video hosting websites, but they are completely different in what they're targeting. YouTube just is like anything and whatever. Vimeo is for more content creators, the directors. Like, if, for example, if a cinematographer, a director wanted to create a commercial reel of their work, like their resume, they would post that on Vimeo. Vimeo will actually, and I may be wrong on this, but I believe this is correct that they do not downgrade the quality of your video when you upload it. It's made for
Mm,
professionals. I think that's even one of their talents, made for professionals. But that platform is specific to that. So what is it that you're targeting? So if you are trying to just start, you want to
yeah.
get noticed, go to YouTube. More eyes. What is it that you're trying to do? If you are at the point where you've made a couple of things and you made a reel, like upload it on Vimeo. And again, like there's some maybe there's some drama as far as like which company is doing well now and why you should upload there and versus the other. That might change. Companies that anything and all kinds of stuff happen all the time. But for the most part, YouTube is dominant right now. YouTube is dominant right now because of you have kids, grandmas and grandpas, just middle-aged people. Like it's everybody. It's not like that with a lot of these other platforms. And you can see that with like Snapchat, Instagram. They vary for different reasons, but these are all free. These are all
Mm,
free platforms that you can take advantage of. For example, when we upload videos, we target all of them, right? We want to upload to Rumble, want to upload to YouTube, because the thinking process behind that is, who knows? Like, what if I did upload also on Rumble and then someone picked that up? And that was the beginning of that career. Like, what if there was someone there who's on that platform checking that out? So I think if I was to give a recommendation, because I don't have a favorite, I really don't have a favorite, I would say upload them all on free. My rule is if it's free, use it.
mm.
If it's free, why not? You know?
Yeah,
But YouTube it's going to be as of right now, YouTube is still the dominant.
yeah. So you mentioned YouTube, Rumble. I heard Rumble. You said Instagram briefly, Vimeo,
Hmm.
and well, with Instagram, would you throw Facebook in there since they're one and the same?
Yeah.
Facebook does give you more of the longer. I mean, some people are on
It's
that, some people are on the IG, but you said if all the free ones, right? I think the only one that we didn't mention so far is maybe Twitter.
Yeah,
And
how
especially
ironic.
someone who's going into politics, I
How
think Twitter is like the whole political stuff. So
it is the press platform. It is a news press
yeah, it's a
platform.
news press platform. Yeah,
And it is definitely changing. It is definitely becoming a lot more than just a news platform, because from my understanding that Elon is trying to um,
compete with the other players
compete with YouTube.
in the market. Yeah,
They want to. They in fact he's brought in quite a few video specific features.
nice, nice.
One is now you can scroll to your feed or whatever else while you have the video downsized on a corner. That was not available on Twitter until like just a few weeks ago. Um, he increased the duration of the type of videos that you can upload on it. So if you got like a 15, 20, whatever, however long, you can do that now. So, as it advances and progresses, you're gonna for sure see Twitter become, this might be controversial, but I think it's gonna become the dominant. And the reason I think it's gonna become the dominant is because one, you have someone that's behind the company that's very, very much into development. He's very passionate about creating features. He's very passionate about technology. Not so much into the politics. So he just wants to create technology.
Yeah,
Whether it's a car or a spaceship or whatever, he just features this. Like he just wants to be the best at it, and I can respect that. But Twitter is it's strongly becoming the place where, and also, but they target different things. But keep in mind what Elon said. He said he wants to make this the everything app, like the kind of like the WeChat of China. I think it's called.
Yeah.
So he wants to make this like the everything. So this is going to be very dominant. I think this is going to be probably in the future the dominant place to go, the dominant platform.
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to content distribution, whatever's free, use it at the end of the day, you know? And definitely start with some of the easier ones, YouTube, and then from there take that content, repost it to the other platforms. So
and you should for a fundamental reason, which is save yourself the hassle and the money and the regrets that you might have if you just did, like, if you paid for stuff and just spent so much money into gear and all this stuff, and then later realize that you're not so into it and you're just kind of like the passion's going to dry out. It's for that fundamental reason that money is going to become crucial to you. And so you need to understand when to use it and how to use it and for what. And if you just go into it blindly and just start buying stuff, you're going to regret it for sure.
No, I 100% agree with that. So we talked about creating reels and getting all that portfolio stuff set up so that you can hopefully get picked up, whether you're doing movies or doing something else. But let's say someone is a freelancer and they just want to create content. They have their portfolio and everything. What would be some techniques on getting clients? Like if you wanted to do something for a business, like how are you going to approach them? And is there any contractual stuff that you got to worry about? And how do you do it where you're just your own entrepreneur and doing this on your own?
Yeah, I think so. If you're someone who went to school, I think this is where that skill is going to kick in, which is to network, right? One of the things that school does is like probably the most thing that school does is like it creates this like mind for you to network with people. That's what you do in school and in college and so on. So, but let's say if you're not like that, local, family, friends, birthdays, even if they don't need it, can I still do it? Just play with it because you have now content. Like one of the things that when I was trying to do color correction, it was like, oh, I'm running out of content. Like I need a footage from this specific camera because I want to test out the color spectrum on this camera and then what I can do with the colors and stuff. And I'm like, I'm out of content. I had someone give me some footage. And so this is like an opportunity for you to get footage to play with. And if you just like, imagine if you had like a little kid's birthday, you don't care for a video or whatever. You're just like, and then, your brother or whatever comes up, can I make a video of this? Okay, sure. Why not? And then they do it. You never asked for it, but then they show it to you like, I didn't want it at first, but good job, man. Like, okay. And then you're going to show it to some other person. And then so that's going to start networking around. That's going to spread. So I would say look at again, within your means, right? Like your friends and family. This is what we do actually. Literally, your podcasting, what I'm doing, it all starts from our people around us, our friends. And like, okay, they have a friend and then they have a friend and it just kind of like spreads and blossoms and starts to grow. But that's what it is. Like start within your means, the people around you. I remember I started doing birthdays. So I've done videography and photos for birthdays, anniversaries, engagements. I did let's see, I mean everything. I've done it. Um and I learned how to put stories together, how to like create the montage. So the sequence of the clips like that help me to understand like when I should cut. By the way, that's also another thing about it is like it's very, very not everybody has a skill. So when you're sitting down and you have, let's say, like a long an hour, whatever amount of footage, it's like when do I cut? When they're talking, when do I cut? When do I go to the next clip? That's actually an art because that just means you understand how humans communicate with each other. Right. So even now, a few times when I cut you off, you stopped and you gave me the leeway so I can say what I want to say. So that's something that you would do in a video when you're cutting, like you would do stuff like that. So that art, if you can like pick that up and then use that skill in the video, a technical aspect of the video and the editing side, yeah, that's going to show. That creativity is going to show. So I think back to the question, use people around you. Pick like again, even if they're not asking for it, like, can I? Why not? If they don't care, why not? If you don't like it, you don't have to have it. It's what I'm just doing this for fun, in my family or whatever. I want to do a video, a photo, like, and this is what I did. I remember I would pick my camera up at every, summer event that we went to, like at the park, at the beach, vacation. Like I would take the camera and I would just record random things. And then I have family members and friends that tell me like this is still the best photo I've seen of my kid. Like so you never know. Just stay within your means, use the people around you, and you would be surprised how much that blossoms and how much that can spread. And then before you know it, you're starting to do this professionally. People are calling you, and at this point, you might want to have a business card. But yeah, you just stay within your means and use the people around you.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good approach where you start off small, you do your friends and family, you become that person that's known to do video
Yes.
or photography. And then when they go out, now they're your ambassadors where
Yes.
they're like, when the conversation comes up, oh, I know one person.
Mhm.
This is his number, or this is his website or his YouTube channel. Go check it out. If you like it,
Yeah.
I'll get you in touch with him. And so like everybody knows another person. It's a matter of time before
Right.
the news travels and people are like, oh yeah, this person can do that. Pretty soon you're making music videos for local rappers. You're making little commercials
Yeah.
for
Done that too.
business and
Yeah.
friends and family that are entrepreneurs who have their little cafeterias and whatnot. So yeah, it definitely is a way to spread out and get your clients more organically, I would say, through
Yeah.
word of mouth. And that's definitely one approach to take.
One of my earliest gigs that I did for free. I worked at a healthcare services call center, and my manager was a rapper.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to Derek. He's like, and like we'll sit down and talk about. I was on his team, and we'll talk about like video and what I'm into, that kind of stuff. And he's like, shoot a video for me, and I don't even remember even asking how much. Like I don't even remember asking that. He's like, yeah, I'll do it. And so I was like, okay, what are we doing? Is this like, tell me about so I had him send me the song and I listened to it. I was trying to tie some stuff to the lyrics that'll make sense in the video. And then like, is it a run and gun? How is it going to be? And yeah, we drove to San Francisco. We had a shot in Treasure Island on the Golden Gate Bridge, multiple different spots that we went to, and we shot this music video. And one thing I'll just kind of like rewind back to is about the camera, right? I had a 5D Mark III. It's a 1080 camera, but back then that was, it was cool. It was definitely like a cool camera, but not a lot of features. So the maximum frame rate I think was for 1080 was just 30 frames per second, which is not enough for slow mo. And there's a shot that I wanted in there where he's just like with a crew and just like walking, and I wanted that slow mo, and so I had to learn a software program to add artificial slow motion in there, which just replicates frames. So it's not actual frames, just replicating, existing frames. And so that's just kind of like go back into that earlier conversation is like, yeah, like I did stuff for free because I just wanted to get an idea what my style is.
Mhm.
That's the other thing is like filmmaking is kind of like this general broad word, but there's like filmmaking, different types of filmmaking, like the style of it. There's a reason why maybe when you look at Christopher Nolan's movies, like the Batman and stuff, it's very specific, right? So when a studio company like Disney or whatever, they hire the director and all, they choose specific people because they know their style. This guy's like horror, moody. This guy's happy, comedy. How are people going to know your style? Even a better question. How are you going to get to know your own style if you haven't played around with it a few times? So it's really important before you dive in and spend all this money and do all this stuff is play around with what you have just to even get an idea of what's your style. For example, like me, I love plot twists, mysteries, thrillers, like maybe political thrillers. Oh man, like one of my favorite movies is the Pelican Brief,
Mm.
which is basically a Manchurian candidate, a sleeping cell who wakes up and is supposed to take the president out. And it's like a plot twist. I love stuff like that. But not every movie is that style. So you need to understand, what are you into? What kind of style of videos are you into? What kind of stories are you into? And as that progresses, you're going to get a clear vision. Then you can market that clear vision to your customers. So your customers can have an idea of, what are you selling? Is it matching to what they want? And if it is, you're gonna get the contract, you're gonna get the
Yeah.
job, you're gonna get the gig. So play around with free stuff. This is I can't
Amplify that enough,
implement it.
right?
Just,
Exactly.
man, play around with free stuff. People, friends and families, birthday coming up, engagement coming up, this coming up. I even told my cousin who was not satisfied with his wedding pictures. I said, let's go. You still got the dress? Let's go. Went to a park. They got dressed up. And it was just my sister who was like holding my gear bag. And then me. And then, just tell them, pose this way, pose that way. And they loved it. They loved the photos and everything like that. So that was free. I wanted opportunities to sort of like find myself, to do the work so I can find myself and find like, what is Mikey into? What kind of taste does he bring to the table?
Yeah.
So,
No, that's awesome. So we talked everything from getting started to kind of identifying your passion to going through the equipment, some of the editing, and even how to get clients and market yourself to an aspect. We talked about content distribution. Is there any topics that you want to get into that we haven't already covered?
Yeah. So I would say, something that I would want to highlight is maybe where the passion comes from. Maybe because this is really important for you to develop it. Like there has to be some kind of a drive, right? So for me, I remember sitting down, like it was like a family event, right? All the adults, right? I think I was maybe 13, 14 at the time. And so during this time, like I'm the oldest out of the kids. So all the adults are just like, like doing their thing, at the party. And I'm kind of like playing the babysitter, and I'm sitting down with all these kids, and I'm telling a story. And the story, I think, yes, the story that I was telling them was Edgar Allan Poe's "A Telltale Heart," which is it's a horror story, and it's a story about a servant who this is like in the 1800s, right? So like a butler kind of servant who's taking care of this old rich man, and he has this he doesn't like the old man, and so he ends up killing the old man
Oh no.
and then burying him under the carpet floor. And then over time, he starts hearing his heartbeat. It's like in his head. It's the guilt. So it's a really, really, and I remember when I was telling the story, the kids were just like plastic. Their eyes were wide open. They were so into it. And I didn't understand that I had this quality until like much later on. But it was like, it was definitely something that was there like early on, like much early on. Um, and one other thing I would like tie to this is like, this is kind of interesting to me is like, I think that the desire and the passion, or maybe the skill creativity of storytelling came from the early traumas of my life. So I think one of the things that I always wanted and never got was for someone to hear my story. I just wanted for someone to know what was going on in my life. When I lost my father, I wanted someone to know how much it hurt, and I didn't have that. I never got that. So it was kind of like this bottling up this, man, someone hear my story. Someone hear my story. So, and when my father died, I just like, I wouldn't talk much. I was like this quiet kid, and very, very much traumatized. And during that period of time, I was, as a kid, I just like started watching movies. And so when my father died and I stopped talking for a while, my mom got worried. And so she sent me over to my aunt's house. And so over the summer, like she sent me over there and I would stay there, and they had a VCR, and they had a bunch of like martial arts movies, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee movies. And that was my life. That was like, I could not get enough. I was so fascinated with movies and storytelling. And I think subconsciously that just like grew in there, and my desire for me to tell my story, and watching, all these different stories about all kinds of stuff like martial arts and whatever. I think they kind of like married each other. And I didn't understand why I was so good at storytelling until later on. I remember this is like maybe 7 years, 8 years ago. I remember going over to my cousin's house. We're supposed to meet up for something. And then was supposed to do like a barbecue or whatever. And I had to go to the grocery store to pick up some bread and some stuff. And as I got in there and got out, the pickup parked next to me blew up. Like
Wow.
it was so hot that the engine caught on fire. Like it just started melting. Like it just caught on fire.
That's crazy.
So I go to my cousin's house, and I'm telling them this. And at the end of it, my cousin, he looks at me, he's like, dude, why are you such a good story? Like you tell this story like it was like a movie. And so I would hear stuff like that, like throughout my life. And I just didn't put it together. I didn't give it much thought to understand, like, is this a skill? Like I'm young, I'm a kid. What do I know what a skill is? Because this kind of stuff like you kicks in like during college years or whatever. Like as a kid, I don't understand what's going on. I'm just like, okay, I could do this, sure, cool. My cousin could play really good basketball, and I can tell good stories. I don't know, whatever. But then after doing some self-discovery and figuring some things out, trying to heal from some of the traumas, it allowed me to look through this lens, and I looked and I looked, and the more I looked, I was like, patterns. I was like, okay, I see how it is. And so it gave me this confidence, which to kind of go back to the earlier question, gave me this confidence for me to know what I want to do and what I want to go into, and gave me the confidence to know that I'm going to be good at it. You're definitely not going to go into the NBA knowing that you suck. That doesn't make sense.
That's for sure.
So that's where my passion and desire for storytelling came from. It was very much part of my DNA, my experience of my childhood and my earlier life. So, yeah, like if someone asks me like, okay, but how did you figure it out? How did you know? That's how. And it wasn't like this little thing. Like it's a big part of my life that had a big impact. That now today that I realize and I see like, okay, man, for sure, this is my destiny. And even throughout like my conversations, faith-based conversations, I'm very lively. I'm very like theatrical almost, like I there's a way that I, tell stories and whatever it is that I'm passionate about and I want to get across. So it's really, really cool. Like I would say again, man, like if you don't want to waste the money and man, most importantly, the time, like figure out this stuff, figure out like, what is it that marries your identity? Like what is it? Just look back, meditate and look at your childhood and just let those memories. This is what you got to do. You're not necessarily like targeting a specific memory or whatever. Just let the memories come. It's like, well, what was 13 like? What do I remember about 13? What do I remember about 12? And just let the memories come. You'll be surprised at the stuff that you start to remember, because we're like a computer hard drive. You just open up the folder, just keep going through the folder. You don't know what's in the folder yet, but you can see the folder in front of you. So just open it, and then you'll see, oh my, I just remember this, and all of a sudden you never know. You're gonna have like this epiphany, and you're gonna realize something like, oh my God, this is mind blowing. I just remembered this about myself. Kind of like where I was like, why did I stop photography? Why did I stop this? So, memories have an interesting role that they play in our lives, because they unlock certain things about us that we've forgotten, that bring us back to the path that we're supposed to be on. So maybe I digressed a little bit, but yeah, man, like figure out what your passion is, because as we discussed before many times, like you have this driver, which is like money, and your passion. It has to be one of these. And one of them is gonna dry out without the other. I feel like they almost like marry each other.
Absolutely.
Success brings, so it's very important. Yeah.
Well, definitely for someone who's getting their feet wet and just trying it out, like I guess it's a two-pronged approach where one, you need a skill set anyways.
Yep.
Now with everything going to technology, I mean, I don't want to get into AI because that's just a whole nother can of worms and how that's impacting the industry. But we'll hold off the AI conversation for another time. But the average person, especially this new generation where everything is online and that everybody wants to be a content creator, a streamer, they want to play their video games, and gaming is very popular with clipping your videos and putting your art or your gameplay online, and you can use that to market into higher leagues. And so there's a whole gaming aspect that we didn't get into it, and how content creation plays a role in that aspect of it as well. But for the average person, maybe they're in high school, middle school, or just out of college, and they want some side hustle or be an enthusiast. They have everything they need in their pocket. There's going to be a demand to know the skill set to some capacity, no matter what. And as long as you give it a try, you're going to get the skill set. But as you're kind of going through that, you'll identify from what you're saying is like, you'll know, is this something that you're passionate about? And there are tells, there are cues. If you like storytelling, or if other people are complimenting you around the way you give a message or the way you communicate, those could be tells to say, hey, maybe that is something that you'll be really interested in. Maybe dig deeper into content creation and see, is that something that's going to spark something there that you could hang on to and start doing that as a way to satisfy that hunger,
Mhm.
to give that outlet, to kind of communicate or tell your story, as you're saying earlier on, where you kind of had that bottled up and you wanted to share something, and now you have an avenue to kind of create something
Mhm.
and share it, and expose it to the world. And so it's a way to be heard, and that could be something that turns into a passion. At the very least, it's a skill set that you'll know whether you
Yeah.
like it or not, that you'll use in the workforce in some capacity. Or as the new generation comes up with this whole new content creation industry, you'll have a little bit of background to speak to it just in social settings. So it does add some market value to knowing a little bit about the
You're
industry.
you this is the we know what we know. It's like it's not a question if you like if you like pizza, it's not a question whether you like you like pizza, right? So let me just kind of like bring up the story. So years ago, um maybe 7 or so maybe years ago, your brother David, who I was kind of like going back and forth with, like using some of his gear. Um, he's like, "Hey man, like, could you be in this video?" And it was gonna be like this fighting sequence, and it was gonna be at this park, and we had to be there before sunrise and in the morning. And so up to that point, I had let go of video work and photography for like a few years. And after that day, so here's what happened. So I was one of the fighters, and my role was to get kicked and punched. So I had to basically stand there and get hit, not fake hit, real hit. And so that shoot took, I think, while we left, it was starting to get, I think it was like 6 p.m. And we were there for like 6 in the morning, for sure, like over 8 hours. I remember, like, oh my God, we've been here over 8 hours. And after that day, I went home. I had bruises on my arm. I had body and chest and stuff. I had bruises. I was sore. I was tired. I had the biggest smile on my face. I was like, this is what I want to do. So it's like kind of like the pizza. Like, no, I just know bro, I can't get rid of the smile. I've been hit. I'm tired. I mean, it's been over 8 hours, but you enjoy every minute of it, and every single part of that, you want to do the best. Like, imagine going to some work that you don't really care about. You work in some call center, and you don't really care about the work. Just like maybe in the first 2 hours, or you're kind of like working, and then after the day goes goes out, you're just kind of like, I'm just like, whatever. I don't care. You're not giving the same level of quality to the work throughout the rest of the day or whatever. When you're passionate about something, you know that you want to do this the whole entire day. No, dude, you didn't kick me well enough. Like, do it again. And so pain, whatever, like, doesn't matter. It's like your motivation. You're so motivated that you just want to do this the best that you can because you will like it so much. You just love it. So you got to do these things to figure out like what you want to do. And but anyway, I just wanted to bring that story up of like some tells about like how you figure out like, do I really like this? Do I really want to know? No, if you do, you're gonna know. Like, you will know, man.
Absolutely. That's funny. I thought you were gonna go and put an ice pack on your
Oh man,
on your face or something. But so let's
shout
say
out to David, man.
yeah, shout out to David. Um, is there, if you had to do it all over again, is there anything that you would do differently in your story and how you got into it, and what you do now?
Uh,
Or would you do it all the same?
man, I don't know how. This is an interesting question. Um,
The
it's kind of like
equipment, the
when if I
jobs, or
because if I could go if I can go back in time and tell myself, reassure myself, what is it that I'm going to be doing and what I want to do, I wish I could have done it earlier. Um, I went for many years, like I kind of like stonewall myself, and I put it on a corner, and I just kind of like didn't do nothing with it. I wasn't really sure because I was in some areas like disqualifying myself, subconscious. A lot of kind of things played, again, like a lot of traumas, a lot of things played a role in that. But I don't know how to, I don't know necessarily how to answer that question, only because, oh man, it involves so many other things that's not necessarily involving filmmaking. That's more,
Well, what I'm hearing is the biggest takeaway is you should have started sooner.
yeah, and like if I could, like, yeah, for sure, I think that'd probably be it, because I would have not have wasted the years that I did. I would have just gone fully into it. But I for sure was, again, because of my traumas and stuff, I was a very subconscious kid. And so even if I was good at something, and like I brought up the story of my cousins, like, oh, you're such a good storyteller. Throughout these like moments in my life, I just didn't grasp. I didn't put the two and two together. Like I didn't understand. I had no one tell me, hey, this is actually a skill, man. Like, let me help you, like, mature this, like, let me help you out. Like, for example, like I mentioned my cousin, like I didn't have that. Like, can I come and watch? Like, here I am. I'm harboring him. I have this skill that I don't even know about, and I don't know what to do with it. So maybe go back earlier and tell myself, hey, like some kind of role model. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's actually perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what you just said and what you're alluding to is have a mentor. If
Yeah.
you have a mentor in your life that could kind of tell you, or you know someone who does videography or
Mm.
content creation to some aspect, and you um, have them introduce you to the gear and help you and teach you and kind of
Open
coach you along.
avenues and
Yeah, kind of explain it and get you into the thing. And by the way, if Hamilton ever wants to come by,
for sure.
everything's available to him. But yeah, whether it's a mentor for life, just for guidance, or even a video, someone that's in the content creation industry that could be a mentor for you to kind of navigate your path to content creation, I think both are equally good takeaways. That's definitely the fast track.
Yeah.
Someone that's going to push you, tell you when you get stuck, something that would have taken you 16 hours to figure out, they could tell you in 16 minutes and get you there a lot faster.
Right.
So it's going to reduce the pain going through the industry and learning. So I think one, start soon is what I heard.
Yeah,
Start
right.
soon and early with your iPhone. Doesn't matter about the equipment. And two, if you do have a mentor that can help you with removing some of the roadblocks or someone to bounce ideas off of, that's also going to be very helpful to getting to your final destination a lot quicker. Whether it turns out to be a passion, awesome, or whether you end up using it as a
moneymaker,
auxiliary,
Sure.
tool, it's going to be good even in conversational settings. So Mikey, why don't you shout out your social media handles one more time? Let people know where they can find you, and we'll close out.
Yeah, both IG, Twitter, and YouTube. Rumble, Mission of God. You can find me on Mission of God. Again, faith-based, Christian-based content. So if you're into that, please watch the videos. I think they're awesome. Very similar to kind of what we're doing, interviews and share stories and stuff like that. So
awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining in and tuning into this episode of the Key Concepts Podcast. I hope we unlocked a few things from Mikey's history that was helpful. I know there's a few things that I might take into consideration on the studio and the setup. So with that, please like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.